everyone, and welcome to a new series called Shut Up, I'm Reading! And yes, that is absolutely the name because I had this t-shirt and I wanted to use it. I didn't just get this t-shirt made for the series, my dad gave it to me a few years back because I love reading books, and I decided that I wanted to share some of the books I read with you and review them and tell you what I think about them. The book I'm going to talk about today is one of my all-time favorite books, and I've been wanting to make a review of this for a long time and just saw that I think 2 days ago the Netflix series for it got released, which I didn't know was something that was happening, but I'm excited about it. I haven't seen it, and this obviously isn't sponsored because why on earth would it be? But the book I'm talking about is 13 Reasons Why, written by J. Asher, and it's originally published in 2007, and it is his first novel, but to be honest, reading this, I couldn't tell that he'd never written a book before. This story is about a young girl named Hannah Baker who has committed suicide, and before she did that, she recorded tapes with 13 reasons why, or 13 stories that led up to her deciding to kill herself. And she's decided to send these tapes to the 13 people that she talks about on the tapes to let them know how they played a part in this. And we follow the perspective of a guy called Clay Jensen, who returns home to find this box of tapes. And Hannah, she left a little map in the box as well, with stars numbered by the stories on the tapes so people can see where the stories took place. So we follow his journey going through these places in the town and listening to the tapes and discovering why Hannah Baker decided to kill herself. This also means that there's kind of two point of views in this book. You get Hannah's, which is of course in a constructive point of view. We don't know what she's thinking, but we do hear her stories. And then Clay's, which is mainly his thoughts that we hear in his interaction during the night, because it only takes place in one night, really. And the suspense in this book isn't if she's gonna kill herself, because we know she's done it since the tapes has been sent. It is, why is Clay on this list? Because Clay himself doesn't know, and that's kind of what keeps him going and listening, and that's why people have to keep reading, because we need to know, what did he do? What happened? How do these events turn so bad that she decides to kill herself? There's not an S at the end of that word, Melina. I've split the things that I really like in this book into 3 categories. The first one being it's really good characters. Now, the people in the story, I believe they're high school age, so like somewhere between 15 and 18. I don't remember if they tell us how old they are, but you know, that age. And I believe I was around 14 when I read this the first time. For me, these characters felt very real. It didn't feel like some adult had written a teenage character. It felt like a teenage person that I would know, and the language used is the language that I knew. The choices they made and the reasoning they had for those choices just felt like something that would happen in real life. And I think Jay did a really, really good job with creating these characters, and also Hannah especially, because she feels very three-dimensional as a female character, which is always good. I love that. We see her obviously through her own voice and how she believes others perceive her, and also how Clay perceived her. So we get a lot of views on this character, and I think that really goes to build a very three-dimensional person where we see like the strengths and the flaws. And also, which is quite interesting, we see the differences between how she thinks of herself, how she believes others think of her, and how Clay thinks of her. So you get 3 voices mixed in there, and it's really well written. Also, I very much felt with the characters. Like I said, we know that Hannah dies, but at the end of the book, I was like, no, don't do it. And I felt I felt the pain that Clay was feeling throughout this journey. So the characters are just very well described and well written. The second thing I really liked about this book is that the problems are relatable. Like I said, I was around this age that the characters are in the book, probably a little younger, but somewhat around that age, and the problems or the issues, the things that happened, the stories that Hannah tells us about are things that I could recognize from my own life. Like, there's the hot or not list that gets mentioned, and some guy like smacking her in the butt without her consent, and these are all things that I've seen happen in my own life several times. So I didn't feel over dramatical. It wasn't dramatized and made up to be this big thing. It was very much little things that happens and kind of snowballed, as Hannah also describes in the book, together into making her miserable and committing suicide. And because it was these small everyday things which I knew, it made it much more real, and therefore the story just felt better and more relatable to me. I also know, because in the version I have, there's a little interview with Jay at the end of it, that he talked with teenage girls about the problems, the difficulties they were facing in their own lives, and that's why it's so relatable. So he did some really good research on this, and it definitely shows in the story and the plotline of the book. The third reason, and final reason why I like this book, is that the message is very important. Like I mentioned, the stories that Hannah tells us are very everyday little annoyances that happen, but because they happen at the time and place that it happens and the people who do it, it snowballs into something much bigger that from the outside wouldn't seem like a big deal, but on the inside of Hannah just becomes unbearable. And this message of that we need to think about how we interact with people and how this could possibly be perceived, and something that we might think is jest or just like it's not a big deal but we know is going to slightly hurt somebody could topple someone's world. And it's a very important message, especially for young people in high school age, like I said, 14 to 18. But the book doesn't seem preachy. It's not like lifting a finger at you. Like, yes, it's very obvious what it's trying to tell us, but it's done in a very humane and relatable way. So it's not like these characters are yelling at you, you should do this. It's just, we see how it influences people from the perspective of the person who decided to kill herself and the person who cared for a friend who is dead. So it really resonates emotionally with you, and that's how you get the message and you experience the book instead of an adult yelling at you. And I think it works really well. Reading this book also made me be very aware of how I interacted with other people, and it completely changed the way I saw interactions and people's reactions to things. Whereas earlier I would think, oh, she's overreacting, why is she being so dramatic about this? I would think more psychologically and like, oh, maybe there's something else here and maybe I shouldn't blame her. And that's why I believe everyone should read this book, because it really did impact my life, and I think it's very important that we learn to see other people's perspective and think about that when we interact with each other. And that's also why it kind of inspired me to start this whole book review series, mainly because I just wanted to tell people about this book and they need to go read it. I know it's been translated to several languages. In Danish it's called Døde piger lyver ikke. So you can definitely find it even if you can't read English. Just to give you a taste of what this book is like to read, I am gonna turn it to a random page and I'm gonna read a little snippet from it so you can be all excited about it and be wanting to go read it. So let's do that. Alright, so I'm on page 124 and it's mainly Hannah's dialogue, but I'm gonna put a little sign of who's speaking because like I said, it's you get the tapes and you get Clay's thoughts, so just to make it clear what's going on. You guessed it, the one from the party with my arm around her waist looking like I was having the time of my life. Quite the actress, Hannah. I told her, no, we're just acquaintances. Well, it's a really fun picture, Miss Benson said, and these next word I remember exactly. The wonderful thing about a yearbook photo is that everyone shares the moment with you, forever. It sounded like something she said a million times before, and before I probably would have agreed, but not with that photo. Anyone looking at that photo would definitely not be sharing our moment. They could not come close to imagining my thoughts in that picture, or Courtney's, or Tyler's. Everything about it was false. Right then, in that office, with the realization that no one knew the truth about my lives, my thoughts about the world were shaken. So yes, there you have it. That was a little random reading from page 124, middle of this book. So all in all, as you probably guessed, I'm pretty happy about this book and I want everyone to go read it. So if any of this has sparked any kind of interest in you, I think you should get it. And for a rating, I would definitely give it 6 out of 6 shut-ups, because that's how I'm rating things on this little series that I'm making. Yeah. As always, I would love to know your thoughts and feelings about the things I talk about. So if you have read this book, and you have any thoughts about it at all, please leave them in the comments below. If you read it and then think, oh, I need to talk about it afterwards, come back and talk to me about it. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Why not? If you watch the Netflix series, we can talk about that too. I haven't watched it, as I said. I'm a bit nervous about watching it because I really, really love the book. I read this several times and each time it's just as good. But I'm gonna watch it and hopefully it's gonna be just as exciting. So yeah, also if you have any books that you feel like I should read and review in the future, leave them down below as well. So until next time, I hope you have some wonderful days filled with exciting and enlightening books. Bye!